Imagine you're playing this really high-stakes chess match, right? But you're trapped inside a sauna.
Oh, wow. Sounds miserable.
Yeah, and at the same time, someone is blasting a rock concert directly into your ears.
That is quite the visual.
Well, according to the sources we have, that is pretty much exactly what it was like stepping onto the pitch for the 2026 World Cup quarterfinal, the one between Argentina and Switzerland.
Right. That match was just incredible.
It really was. And usually when you watch a match like that, the power dynamic feels pretty straightforward, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the referee blows the whistle, the players just follow the rules, and the broadcasters in the booth kind of, tell you the story of the game.
Exactly. It's a very neat, very top-down flow of information to you, the viewer.
It is comfortable. The boundaries are drawn, and for decades, really, everyone involved, from the athletes to the fans, they just accepted their designated roles in that whole ecosystem.
But looking through the giant stack of sources we have for today's deep dive, that traditional power structure is basically being dismantled from every single angle.
It really is. It's falling apart.
So today, we are extracting the core insights from a pile of recent reports covering that dramatic World Cup clash in Kansas City. And we're pairing that with this really groundbreaking USC Annenberg study on sports media.
Right, which might seem like a weird pairing at first.
Yeah, but our mission today is to explore how these things actually connect, to reveal a massive shift in the dynamics of power, control, and narrative in modern sports.
Yeah, we're going to look at how a very controversial VAR red card in this sweltering stadium connects to a $50,000 FIFA Good Behavior Prize, essentially.
Right. And ultimately how female athletes are pretty much taking a sledgehammer to the traditional sports media complex off the pitch.
Which is such a fascinating juxtaposition.
Yeah.
On the field, you have these governing bodies desperately trying to tighten their grip and micromanage the
Yeah,
product.
absolutely.
But then off the field, the athletes are waking up and realizing they actually have the leverage to bypass the whole system entirely.
Yeah, it's wild. But let's start with the physical environment where this power struggle played out first. Yeah. Because reading the Bolivie report, this quarterfinal was literally an endurance test before a single ball was even kicked.
Oh, for sure. The conditions were just extreme.
We are talking about the Kansas City Stadium, which is an open-air venue.
Right.
So there is zero air conditioning for the players down on the pitch, or the fans, for that matter. You are fully, completely exposed to the Midwestern summer humidity.
Which is brutal in July. Just heavy, thick air.
Exactly. And the architecture of the stadium actually compounds the whole issue. It features the steeply raked seating bowl that rings the entire field.
Yeah.
Bolivie very aptly described it as a concrete megaphone.
That is a great description. A concrete megaphone.
Because it just traps all that crowd noise and reflects this deafening wall of sound directly back down onto the pitch.
You really cannot separate the tactical events of this match from that sensory overload. I mean, the physical toll of the heat, combined with the sheer inability to even communicate with your teammates because of the noise, it alters your decision-making.
It has to, right?
Yeah, and in that crazy pressure cooker, you have the Lionel Messi factor.
Oh, man, yeah. Coming into this game, Messi was on this historic run. He had a record 9-game World Cup scoring streak that spanned 2 whole tournaments.
Just an unbelievable run of form.
And he was tied with Kylian Mbappe for the Golden Boot. The Swiss coach, Murat Yakin, he even joked with the press beforehand about having this secret solution to stop him.
Right, which usually backfires when coaches say that.
Usually, yeah. But amazingly, they actually managed to keep Messi off the score sheet. His streak finally ended right there in that concrete megaphone.
It did. But what's fascinating here is that while the Swiss defense did successfully prevent Messi from, finding the back of the net himself, they absolutely couldn't neutralize his vision.
No, not at all.
His tactical genius was still the deciding factor early on. Because that opening goal in the 10th minute from Alexis McAllister, it wasn't born from open play. It was this highly orchestrated set piece.
I really want to dig into that because I was reading the Fox Sports and Squawka breakdowns, and that goal looks so chaotic on television, but it was actually a rehearsed pattern, wasn't it?
Oh, it was highly rehearsed. Squawka's analysis points out that Argentina has utilized this specific near-post corner kick delivery throughout the entire tournament.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and the mechanics of why it works are just brilliant. So instead of floating the ball into the center of the penalty box, where, the tallest defenders are just waiting to clear it out.
Right, which is what you normally see.
Exactly. Instead of that, Messi drives the ball hard and low toward the near post.
Which means an attacking player has to really anticipate that space. Like, they have to sprint away from their marker and meet the ball before the defense can even react.
Precisely. It relies entirely on timing and geometry rather than just pure height.
Which makes sense for Argentina.
Yeah, and that is how McAllister, who is, he's only 5'9", manages to rise up above a towering Swiss defense to score a header.
It's crazy to watch.
It really is. In fact, Argentina had run the exact same play just seconds prior, which the Swiss barely deflected out for another corner.
Oh, I missed that part. So they just ran it again.
Yep. Messi just lined up, put the ball in the exact same dangerous spot again, and McAllister finished it this time. It really proves that even when you manage to contain Messi, the goal scorer, Messi, the orchestrator, is still out there pulling all the strings.
But, the Swiss didn't collapse after going down early, and the Koha source provides this really crucial context for why they held on.
Right, the emotional side of it.
Yeah. Granit Xhaka, the Swiss captain, he had actually broken down in tears of relief after their prior win over Colombia.
I remember saying that.
Yeah, because for these Swiss veterans, this match was deeply, deeply personal. It was their chance to avenge this incredibly painful 118th minute loss to Argentina back in the 2014 World Cup.
Wow, 2014, that is a long time to hold a grudge.
It is. And a game where Xhaka and Ricardo Rodriguez were actually on the pitch for that loss 12 years ago. So that emotional baseline really set the stage for their response.
Yeah, I mean, you can't exactly quantify a decade of lingering frustration, right?
Yeah.
But you can definitely see it in how they completely refused to accept a 1-0 deficit. They changed their entire approach.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where the stats just make absolutely no sense to me at first glance.
Let's hear it.
Argentina are the defending champions. They always hoard possession. They dictate the tempo of the game through all their short, intricate passing networks. Yet, somehow, after taking the lead, Switzerland just took over the ball. What changed tactically to allow that to happen?
It really comes down to a massive structural disruption by the Swiss. Squawka breaks this down beautifully. Switzerland basically abandoned their cautious approach and initiated this incredibly high press.
It's pushing everyone up.
Basically, yeah. They pushed their entire formation way up the field. And by doing that, they cut off the passing lanes that Argentina's center backs always rely on to build out from the back.
So they basically suffocated the space Argentina needs for those little passing triangles.
Yes, exactly. And by doing that, they forced Argentina into this wild statistical anomaly.
What was it?
The South Americans hit a tournament high 7.4% of long passes.
Wow, that is high for them.
It is, because when you press that high, you force the opposing goalkeeper, in this case, Emiliano Martínez, to bypass the midfield entirely and just kick it long.
Right. But Argentina's attacking line doesn't exactly feature massive target men who can win long headers against big Swiss center backs.
Nope, they don't. So every time Martínez cleared the ball out of desperation, Switzerland just collected the second ball and immediately launched another attack.
They just kept coming back at them in waves.
Exactly. They dictated the entire geography of the game. Initially, they tried to overload their right flank. They pushed their defensive midfielders, Denis Zakaria and Djibril Sow, way up that side to create a numerical advantage.
Just trying to overwhelm that one side of the pitch.
Right. But Argentina actually handled that pressure pretty well, so the Swiss pivoted. They shifted their focus over to the left flank. And in the 67th minute, it finally paid off.
That equalizing goal.
Yeah, Dan Adoy equalized on a counterattack, finishing off this really pinpoint cross from the overlapping left back, Ricardo Rodriguez.
The very same Ricardo Rodriguez who suffered through that 2014 defeat.
I know, you really can't write a better script than that.
The narrative symmetry there is just incredible. So it's 1-1, the momentum has completely swung to the Swiss, the crowd is deafening, and then we hit the major turning point of the match, which is detailed in that Goal.com report.
Yeah.
Brillambolo's highly, highly controversial red card.
This is such a prime example of how the literal application of rules can instantly rewrite the script of a match.
Okay, so let's walk through it. Embolo goes into this challenge on Leandro Paredes. The referee blows the whistle, walks over, and gives Paredes a yellow card for the foul.
Right, standard call.
Yeah, standard stuff. But then VAR, the video assistant referee, they intervene. The referee goes over to the monitor on the sideline, looks at it, rescinds the yellow for Paredes, and instead gives Embolo a second yellow card for simulation, for diving.
Yeah.
And suddenly, Switzerland is reduced to 10 men. Now, I have to jump in here because VAR is usually reserved for clear and obvious errors regarding goals or like direct straight red
That
cards.
is what it was designed for, yes.
Using the video booth to reverse a standard foul into a simulation booking feels like a massive flex of refereeing power. That is crazy to me.
It is highly unusual and obviously incredibly controversial. The threshold for VAR intervention is supposed to be super high, mostly just to prevent constant stoppages that ruin the flow of the game.
Yep.
So using it to litigate the internal intent of a player falling down, actively deciding it was a deliberate dive rather than just a loss of balance at full speed, it really feels like micromanagement.
It totally does. The Swiss were reportedly fuming after the match, calling the refereeing a disaster.
I don't blame them. It is a devastating psychological blow to claw your way all the way back against the world champions in that heat, only to lose a man to a simulation call from a video monitor.
So they immediately had to bunker down, just pack it in their own penalty box, and try to survive until a penalty shootout.
Which they almost managed to do, to their credit.
They really did, dragging the game deep into extra time. But Argentina's manager, Lionel Scaloni, he made this really crucial tactical adjustment to finally break them down.
Yes, Scaloni recognized a fundamental truth about playing against 10 men.
Which is what?
They will naturally pack the center of the pitch to protect the goal. It's human nature. If you keep trying to attack straight through the middle, you just run into a literal wall of bodies.
So he adapted.
He did. He directed his team to use the full, maximum width of the field, pushing his wingers all the way out to the touchlines on both sides.
Which forces these already exhausted Swiss players to cover significantly more ground laterally.
Exactly. When you stretch a 10-man defensive block from sideline to sideline, gaps inevitably start to open up right in the center.
They just get stretched too thin.
Yeah. And in the 112th minute, that lateral passing created just enough space for Julián Álvarez, who, by the way, hadn't scored all tournament, to unleash an absolute rocket into the top corner.
It was a beautiful goal.
And then Lautaro Martínez added a counterattack goal right at the end to seal a 3-1 victory and sends Argentina to the semifinal.
It really is a masterclass in exploiting space. But that turning point, Embolo's red card for simulation, it's actually a perfect bridge into something much larger happening at this World Cup.
Oh, definitely.
Because while that specific VAR decision was about exerting control over a single play, FIFA is rolling out an entirely new systemic structure to engineer behavior across the entire tournament.
You're referring to the corner flick data on the new FIFA FairPlay, or PFP, standings.
Yeah.
This is a profound shift in how the sport is governed.
It's wild. FIFA is now basically quantifying on-pitch behavior and baking it directly into the group tables.
Yes, and the mathematical deductions are severe.
They really are. You lose 1 point for a yellow card, you lose 3 points for an indirect red, which is exactly what happened to Embolo.
Right.
A straight red costs you 4 points, and a yellow followed by a straight red is a massive 5-point deduction.
It adds up so fast.
It does. South Africa is currently sitting at the very bottom of these standings with a minus 12 points after picking up 2 straight reds in their opener against Mexico.
Minus 12. That is a deep hole to climb out of.
It's a very rigid system designed to create immediate mathematical consequences for indiscipline.
But, the mechanism actually goes way beyond just punishing dangerous tackles. It is really about shaping the aesthetic of the sport itself.
Which brings me to the second part of this rule that really gave me pause when I was reading the sources.
The prize money.
Yes. Wait, there is also a $50,000 prize awarded based on, quote, attacking intent.
That's right.
The Corner Flick report notes they are judging criteria like respect for opponents, the behavior of the coaching staff on the sidelines, and actively rewarding aggressive over defensive football.
Right.
I mean, are we grading style points in a combat sport now? This feels incredibly subjective.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, your skepticism hits on the exact strategy FIFA is employing here. They are actively engineering the style of the game for marketability.
So they want a very specific, highly polished product to sell to broadcasters and sponsors.
Yes. I mean, think about it. Brands pay literal billions for these television rights.
Right.
And they do not want to associate their brands with ugly, violent, or deeply cynical matches.
That makes sense from a corporate perspective.
Exactly. So by offering financial rewards for attacking intent and actually legislating how coaches behave on the sidelines, the governing body is attempting to tightly control the narrative. They're trying to mandate high-scoring, polite, easily digestible entertainment for the masses.
It's a massive top-down effort to basically sanitize the product.
It really is.
But here is where the power dynamic flips entirely, and we can move to our second set of sources.
I love this part.
Because while FIFA is pulling every lever they have to control the product on the field, the athletes themselves are realizing they don't need FIFA, or traditional networks for that matter, to control their product off the field.
Right, they're just following the leverage.
Exactly. It is a full-blown media revolution.
Driven by this sudden realization that athletes no longer have to be passive subjects in someone else's broadcast.
Right. We have this fascinating study from USC Annenberg called Owning the Narrative, and the data in here is just staggering.
The numbers are huge.
The sports media landscape is shifting so rapidly toward athlete-owned podcasts and digital channels. They are amassing over 7 billion YouTube views. 7 billion.
It's incredible. It's like moving from being a hired actor in someone else's movie to suddenly owning the entire studio.
Yes. You aren't just reading the script they hand you at the press conference anymore. You own the intellectual property, and you collect the box office revenue yourself.
That is the core mechanism of this whole shift. For decades, if an athlete wanted to speak to the public, they had to go sit at a press conference table and answer repetitive questions from traditional journalists.
How did it feel to score that goal?
Exactly. And then the narrative was filtered through the network's editorial lens before it ever reached you. Now, technology allows them to bypass those gatekeepers entirely.
Which is empowering.
It is. But the USC study highlights a pretty significant disparity in this new frontier.
Yeah, the playing field is not exactly equal yet, is it?
It really isn't, despite the massive cultural momentum we are seeing and the record-breaking viewership in women's sports right now, like across the WNBA, the NWSL, NCAA women's basketball. The study found that only 20% of these athlete-driven shows feature women as hosts or guests.
Wow. Just 1 in 5.
Yeah, it is a glaring gap.
It is, but the pioneers who are actually breaking through that 20% barrier, they are doing it by completely rejecting the traditional PR playbook.
Oh, absolutely.
Look at Kristen Press and Tobin Heath, the 2 U.S. soccer legends. They launched the RE Cap show.
Such a good show.
The Annenberg report describes them just sitting cross-legged on a living room couch, drinking coffee, and dismantling the traditional sports media complex with this unscripted, totally authentic conversation.
Because they own the production company, you know. They manage the distribution, and they dictate the tone. Nobody's telling them what they can and can't say.
Right, and then you have Courtney Williams and Atisha Heidemann during the WNBA All-Star Weekend.
That was brilliant.
They didn't book a fancy studio or hire a moderation team or anything. They literally streamed a show called Stud Buds on Twitch directly from their phone.
Just holding their phones up.
Yeah. It was chaotic. It broke all the rules of polished media training, and thousands of people tuned in specifically because it was so raw.
What's fascinating here is how the actual content of the conversation fundamentally changes when you remove the network executives from the room.
Oh, totally.
And the USC Annenberg data actually quantifies this shift.
Let's talk about those numbers because I think they explain exactly why fans are migrating to these athlete-owned platforms in the first place.
Well, the study found that the average traditional sports podcast spends about 65% of its time discussing strict sports topics.
So like stats, play-by-play, injury reports, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And only 35% on life or culture. But when women athletes host their own shows, they leverage that platform completely differently.
How so?
They address women's issues 4.5 times more often than men's shows do.
Wow, 4.5 times.
Yeah. They talk about pay, equity, maternity in sports, and broad cultural impacts, things that traditional broadcasts usually gloss over.
So why does this matter to you listening right now? If you're wondering why your favorite sports feeds look so different lately, this is exactly why.
Right.
You aren't just getting those manufactured post-game sound bites anymore where a player stares blankly at the wall and says, we gave 110%, we executed the game plan.
By the cliches.
Yeah, the cliches. Instead, you are getting the messy, human, nuanced side of the sport that traditional broadcasts simply don't have the airtime or, honestly, the inclination to cover.
And this isn't just a hobby for these athletes,
Yeah.
It is a highly sophisticated business strategy. They are building massive media companies from scratch.
Like who?
Well, Serena Williams launched 926 productions. Alex Morgan, Sue Bird, Chloe Kim, and Simone Manuel founded Together HXR, which is an entire media ecosystem designed to amplify women's voices and focus on representation.
They are basically building the infrastructure that the traditional networks completely failed to provide for them. And by doing that, they change the entire financial equation.
Exactly. When you own the ecosystem, You control the sponsorships and the ad revenue. You no longer have to wait for a network executive to decide if your sport is worth broadcasting.
You just monetize the audience you built directly.
Exactly. It redirects the commercial value back to the creators themselves.
It is a complete paradigm shift. So, drawing a line through everything we've unpacked today across these sources, the theme of control is just undeniable.
It really ties it all together.
We are watching the game change at every single level. On the pitch, you have a grueling tactical chess match. You've got Argentina utilizing highly rehearsed geometry on corner kicks, Switzerland adapting with a suffocating high press, and Scaloni stretching the Kansas City Stadium to its limits to break down a 10-man bunker.
Yeah, and simultaneously you have the governing bodies attempting to exert this unprecedented top-down control. They're using VAR to micromanage simulation, and they're creating these complex fair play point systems to financially engineer a sanitized, highly marketable style of football.
And yet, completely outside the stadium walls, you have the athletes themselves just cutting out the media middlemen entirely. They're grabbing their phones, firing up Twitch, and taking total bottom-up ownership of how their stories are told to the world.
It's a fascinating tug of war over who actually gets to write the history of the sport.
It really is.
And this raises an important question, and it's one I think we all need to consider as this landscape continues to fracture.
What's that?
Well, if athletes continue to control their own media ecosystems, acting as their own publishers and filtering their own narratives, do we eventually lose the necessity of objective sports journalism?
Oh, wow. That's a huge question.
Or, on the flip side, by removing those traditional media gatekeepers and their inherent biases, are we finally getting the authentic truth we've been missing all along?
Man, that tension between the official broadcast and the raw Twitch stream, that is exactly what makes this era of sports so compelling right now. Who do you trust to tell you the story of the game? The referee in the video booth, the network executive, or the player sitting on the couch with a microphone?
It's definitely something to chew on next time you tune into a match.
It sure is. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the sources, and we'll catch you next time as we keep unpacking the stories behind the story.